So to finish up the interactions for our theme, we want to add this hover effect on our menu and also on the cart. And this is just kind of a good way to show the user that, you can click on this link here. Right now, if we go back inside of our own customizer that we just created, we can see that the menu link does not have the correct pointer. So we need to add that. This has a nice hover effect on it just because we added it in the footer as well. So it kind of transferred over, which is pretty nice. Then we can also add a border on our slide out menu here, as we can see in the other theme. And then also, if you'll notice, the letters are a little bit more refined. So the font looks just a little bit more high definition than in our own theme. And this is just an easy fix. So let's go ahead and fix that first, and then we'll do the interactions. Going back inside of our code now, let's go inside of the application.scss, and let's go ahead all the way up to our presets where we made a preset for the body. So let's add something here. And what we need to add is dash webkit dash font dash smoothing and then anti-aliased. So don't ask me what this means, but basically it just smooths out the font so it looks much more crisper. So let's go ahead and save that. And now if we go back inside of the customizer, we can see that, let me just zoom in a little bit here. We can see that it's a little bit too bold. And now if we refresh this, it kind of sharpened it up a little bit. And it's a very slight difference, but it's definitely noticeable to the designer's eye. So if you're going to be working on some designer mockups, keep this CSS property in mind. It's very useful, and it just kind of smooths out the fonts that you're using. And now going inside of the assets folder with the zip file that came with this course, you will find an arrow.svg file. So what we can do now is we can just copy it inside of our assets folder. And the way that I like to use SVGs is by actually creating snippets of them. So let's go ahead and create a new snippet called header arrow.liquid. And what we can do now is go back inside of the arrow SVG and just copy all of this code here. And we'll just paste it inside of this header arrow.liquid file. And we can just save that. And this just makes sure that our SVG is rendering properly. So let's go ahead and close this now. And let's go into snippets and now open the header.liquid file. And then inside of the header.liquid file, right above this menu, let's create an SVG tag, and we'll give this a class name of menu arrow icon. And then inside of this SVG tag, we will actually render our SVG. Perfect. And there are many different ways that you can use an SVG, but I found that this way, we're able to control the SVG in a much easier fashion just by referencing the class name. And now let's copy this SVG, and we're going to put it just after this span over here. And let's change the class name to be cart arrow icon. So let's save this now. And let's go back inside of our application.scss. And we'll find the portion where we have the menu button. And it's just over here. So let's give it a position of relative. And then we'll add the cursor now as well. I will say cursor pointer. And let's also add a transition value, and we'll give it 0.15 seconds. And then we'll add a hover effect as well. So let's add an ampersand and hover, and we'll say padding left 15 pixels. Now just underneath this, we'll create a new class, and we'll say dot menu button hover. And then we'll also reference the menu arrow icon, and we'll say that we want the opacity to be 1 and left to be 0. Now let's reference the actual menu arrow class name. So let's just copy this one and we'll go down a little bit and we will give it a transform of rotate, and it's going to be 180 degrees because we're using the same arrow and we want one of them to be rotated. So if we go back inside of our customizer, we can see that this arrow is pointing right and then this arrow is pointing left. So we're just going to rotate this one. And this is how it looks right now. Now let's give it opacity of 0 and width, we'll say 11.5 pixels and height 12 pixels. And then position will be absolute and top 5 pixels and left will be minus 15 pixels. And then on hover, it's going to actually bring it into view. So we're basically sliding it out. And then transition, we'll add 0.15 seconds and pointer events will be none. Okay, let's save this and see how our arrow looks. So let's go back here, we'll refresh. And there we go. It's sliding out pretty nicely. So we just need to do the same thing for the cart now. So now let's search for the cart button, and it's just over here. Just close this, and now we'll add a hover effect as well here. And the same thing, padding right this time will be 15 pixels. And then we'll do dot cart button hover, and then we'll select the cart arrow icon, and we'll say we want the opacity to be 1, and then right 0. Now let's actually select the cart arrow icon class, and we will give it opacity of 0, and width will be 11.5 pixels, and height will be 12 pixels. And then position will be absolute, top 5 pixels, right minus 15 pixels, and transition we'll say 0.15 seconds, and then pointer events will also say none. Okay, perfect. So let's save this and take a look at how our menu looks now. There we go. Perfect. So we have these small interactions here, and everything is working really smoothly. And now let's fix our back button as well, because right now it doesn't have this SVG. So let's just copy this as well and paste it just above our span for the back button. And then we don't want to rotate it. So let's go ahead and say style equals transform, and we can just add none. And now if we save that and go back and refresh, we can see that the back button is now pointing backwards. Perfect. So the next thing you can do is add a border on the menu, but I actually kind of like it without the border. It just adds a much cleaner effect, I think, than what I originally had. So I'm just going to keep it without the border. Perfect. So let's go into the next lecture now, where we're going to make this theme mobile friendly, because right now the cart is messing everything up a little bit, and we don't have the menu buttons for our mobile view yet, which are going to look like this. So we have the cart sliding out here and our menu as well. So I'll see you in the next lecture, and we'll finish up the mobile menu.